the problem for the Broncos? Because there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Denver does not look great. That the win over the Niners was so like what? Like it was so weird. So do you think the problem is Russell Wilson, or do you think it's Nathaniel Hackett?
Wow. Well, I'm going to say I think it's a Nathaniel Hackett thing. And the reason why is because Russell Wilson doesn't control penalties on the defensive side of the ball, especially when it comes to, like roughing the passer, pass interference, offsides. And also, too, I would say offensively, the false starts. I couldn't tell you how many times in the 49er game I saw, a drive get started by the Broncos and immediately stalled because, one of their young O linemen jumped jumped to a false start. So I would say I think it's a Nathaniel Hackett thing. I get it. Maybe it's a complicated offensive system. Wilson has been in a system with Seattle, obviously, for 10 years. So he has a lot of old habits, essentially. And, he's learning a new, unique system. And I would say that for the receiving core as well. They're a young bunch. And Courtland Sutton was injured all of last season. Jerry Jeudy, same thing. He was injured majority of last season. Tim Patrick, who was supposed to be like, wide receiver 2 or 1, depending on, what scheme they're running. He's out currently. So, you don't even have a full gamut of your weapons, and it's a brand new system. And you can tell like they need a lot of work. And I think it's a Nathaniel Hackett thing. And again, clock management and going for a 68-yard field goal rather than let's go get one more play in before we call a timeout. That's not a Wilson thing, even though some would say he had the power to do that. But, I think it's a Nathaniel Hackett thing too. In my opinion, I think if I had to assess the first 3 or 4 games of this season, that's what I would generally assume is this is a Hackett situation.
Earlier I was with you, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I think there is somewhat, I think there's blame for both, and I'm not going to be that person who's going to be like, I'm Switzerland, I'm both. I like this guy and this guy. No, and I don't know why I'm making fun of Switzerland. I wish America was like that sometimes. But anyway, I actually, I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. I think there is a problem with Russell Wilson because, Cody, you and I share a fantasy league, and I know I'm not going to go into fantasy football, but recently I just saw that Russell Wilson came up on the injured list. Now he's questionable. I'm sure he's going to play. But yeah. This was happening a lot in Seattle the last few years. And I will give credit to the Backseat Podcast. They've kind of been on this for a while. They're like, I see a decline in Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of under the impression that Seattle, there's not much. It's Tyler Lockett. He's okay. DK Metcalf. He's this big, fast receiver, but he's okay, I guess. I don't think he's elite yet. I think he could be. Mm-hmm. And he had a great week this past week. But then they were running with Will Dissly, and I was just like, the offensive line is bad. The defense is getting worse. I don't know. I just don't think it's Russell Wilson. But now that I'm seeing it on a team that has a great defense, I don't think their offensive line is as bad as everyone's saying it is. I think they actually have some dudes up front. Mm-hmm. And then I think their running backs, even without Javonte Williams, is still pretty good. And then I think the receiving core is I don't think it's great, but I think it is a good receiving core. So, yes, it can be Nathaniel Hackett, but I also want to think about Russell Wilson. When he was struggling in Seattle, this would happen where he would show up randomly on the injured list, and then all of a sudden he'd miss a couple of weeks, and he came back, and he'd have like a really good game. And everyone was like, oh, okay, it was just the injury. It was just the injury. But then he kind of took a step back, but then they would win these weird games that they probably shouldn't have won. And then you look at the record, and you're like, well, he's holding up the team. Maybe it is Russell Wilson. Maybe he is the one that is kind of the problem here. Now, the whole like game management thing, I do also think exactly what you're saying. He could have stepped up. Russell Wilson has done this for years.
Mm-hmm.
He has done this for years. As a quarterback, you have to feel, at least if you feel like something's going to work. Like if Tom Brady were on his first year in Tampa Bay and the coach was like, okay, we're just going to kick the field goal out. I'm pretty sure Tom Brady would have went over to the coach and was like, no, we're not. We're not going to do this. This is Aaron Rodgers would be the same way. Russell Wilson and Derek Carr, in my opinion, I think would be guys who would say, no, I'll just go with the coach. Because I think that's what's going on with Derek Carr right now is he's kind of just like, I don't know what the proper word would be, but just kind of like leaving it up to the coach. And he's just like, okay, I'll wash my hands of it and I'll just take the blame for it. But, whatever. But like Patrick Mahomes, I mean, you saw Eric Bieniemy. I mean, how long have they been working together and they're out there arguing? I want to see that. We saw that with Derek Carr and John Gruden. They would argue all the time, and everyone was like, oh, John Gruden's not going to like that. And actually, it came out where John Gruden loved that. He wanted to be challenged. And I think Derek Carr needs to do that with Josh McDaniels. But going into Russell Wilson, I think he needs to do that with Nathaniel Hackett because this is the first year he's being a head coach. Russell Wilson is going to have to challenge him. As much as Hackett has been around in the league for a long time because of his dad and now him, Russell Wilson has been playing in the game, and Nathaniel Hackett, this is his first time being an actual head coach. It is a big, significant difference going from head coach or going from offensive coordinator to head coach. It's not like, it's kind of like where if you were a guy playing safety and then coming into playing quarterback, it's a big difference. Okay. I know that's probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I really do feel like Russell Wilson is going to have to challenge Nathaniel Hackett. Do I think Nathaniel Hackett has shown that he is a little incompetent right now? Yes. But that's why I think this is Russell Wilson's problem because he needs to step up. He needs to be the leader. And he's not doing that right now. And I think that's where you're going to lose the locker room because a lot of guys are like, yeah, Russell Wilson is corny. Yeah, Russell Wilson is a guy who, he just doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. And guys don't respect that. I mean, I'm a guy, I don't really respect someone who's just going to brown nose me the whole time. I would like someone to be like, I wouldn't do that, dude. And be like, oh, shoot, I think you're right. I want to be somewhat challenged. I don't want to just be like a yes man all the time. So I think Russell Wilson does need to step up. So I'm going to say it's Russell Wilson.